Audience, thank you all for coming. And of course, I have visual aids to show the effects of obesity, so you guys can pass that around. And I'll just get right into it. So, thank you all for coming. There are many health issues affecting the United States today. People worry about the health effects of cigarettes and drinking all too often, and an equally dangerous problem is ignored or disregarded. According to the CDC, or Center for Disease Control, over 1/3 of American adults today are obese. Truly a staggering number. The problem is, when it comes to obesity, people always say that they'll exercise tomorrow or they'll start eating healthy tomorrow, but it never happens. And in a culture where fast food reigns supreme and obesity and the health effects are an afterthought compared with other health concerns, it doesn't get the attention it needs. Obesity is a real problem and there needs to be real solutions. There are 300,000 premature deaths in the US alone caused by obesity every year. And unless something is done, the death toll will only increase. So, according to Stanford Healthcare, the effects and scope of problems that obesity causes is almost endless. It raises the risk of a vast number of diseases such as the problems associated with high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, joint problems, sleep apnea, respiratory problems, cancer, metabolic syndrome, and also, but not limited to, psychological effects. So the problem is, the pattern of unhealthy eating and poor diet and exercise by 1/3 of our country is setting bad habits for our children and future generations. Not to mention the fact that premature deaths leave families without their loved ones, grandchildren without grandparents, sons without their fathers, daughters without their mothers. The Surgeon General of the United States even went as far as to call it the biggest epidemic of our generation. There are, of course, preventative measures that should and need to be taken, because all too often obesity is dismissed or even celebrated in the name of body positivity. But if that something limits your time here on Earth and the time that people spend with their families, then we need to recognize the problem when we see it, and while being sensitive to people's emotions and confidence, not encourage or pretend that there's nothing wrong with obesity. So, like I said, there are several ways to prevent obesity. I will provide 3 such ways. Of course, there are more ways than the 3 that I will mention. According to the CDC, an effective way to prevent obesity and promote a healthy lifestyle is to use a BMI calculator, which is body mass index. And it basically takes your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters, and the resulting number will tell you whether you're overweight, obese, underweight, or at a healthy weight. And checking this regularly can help monitor your lifestyle choices and whether or not you're making the right choices, whether the number goes down or not. And it'll help people kind of regain grasp on their life and their choices that they make, rather than just seeing how they change in the mirror, to see and fix how they're acting. And checking this regularly will show that maybe the choices that you made in the past haven't been the healthy ones. And just keeping up with that regularly will help people see that their lifestyle might need to tweak here and there. Otherwise, to prevent obesity, as listed by Stanford Healthcare, is to eat 5 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, choose whole grain foods over more processed and artificial foods, weigh and measure food, since a lot of obese people deal with portion issues. Weigh yourself regularly to see if you're making progress, and if not, to change something, to do something about it. They should also balance the food checkbook, aka make sure you burn more calories than you consume, because if you're eating too many calories, you're going to have not a calorie deficit, which is what you need to be healthy, especially if you're obese and you want to lose all that weight. And of course, the most basic one, which is just exercise at least 30 minutes a day, which is an absolutely vital step to preventing obesity, and also to just plain and simple just be healthy when given the opportunity. And whether it's to take the stairs at work or to just decide to go against the dessert, just do what you can. And lastly, regarding preventing childhood obesity, the American Heart Association has provided several tips for parents and caretakers to follow to ensure that children don't become obese and suffer from the health problems that so many others face today, especially in a world where school lunches and fast food and cheap food all lead to obesity and are all just too easy to come by. The child looks up to the parent, of course, so it is important to lead by example and encourage healthy eating habits. Even small ones can lead to a recipe for success. This includes providing healthier choices such as fruits and veggies and whole grain, choosing the low-fat substitute for dairy products, choosing leaner meats and poultry, as well as making sure the portions are reasonably sized. Kids are awfully picky when it comes to eating, so it can be a big help to take their favorite dish and just make it a bit healthier by choosing different ingredients or preparing it in a different way. And importantly, since kids, of course, love sugar, it is imperative to remove high-calorie temptations that provide no real nutritional benefit. Equally as important is making sure your kids lead an active lifestyle and participate in physical activities such as sports, dance, or even just playing outside, just to name a few. All these tips are great on paper, but there are specific factors that determine the success of these efforts and include the participation of the parents in the dietary program, strong social support of dietary intervention, and making sure the physical activity becomes regular and routine. The reality is preventative measures aren't taken. That is the reality. And obesity continues to control the lives of over 30% of adults in the United States. It's going to claim the lives of more and more people who aren't ready to die so young. Not to mention that besides the obvious health issues people deal with their whole lives, there is the psychological and social disadvantages associated with it as well. According to Stanford Healthcare, in a culture where often the ideal of physical attractiveness is to be overly thin, people who are overweight or obese frequently suffer disadvantages. Overweight and obese persons are often blamed for their condition and may be considered to be lazy or weak-willed. It is not uncommon for overweight or obese conditions to result in persons having lower incomes or having fewer or no romantic relationships. Disapproval of overweight persons expressed by some individuals may progress to bias, discrimination, and even torment. Nobody wants that for themselves. Nobody wants that for their children. And everyone has the power to control what they eat. People can listen to all the tips they want and try all the diets in the world, but it is up to you as an individual to do what it takes to provide a better future for yourself and for your kids. So I encourage everybody to support a more healthy lifestyle, make better choices, and set an example for those who look up to us.